if you'd like.
Okay.
Okay, awesome.
All right. So let me know when I should start.
Go ahead, Erwin, go for it. Everyone's listening.
Everyone is listening. Okay.
Yes.
Well, let me start by I was born in 1927, December 6th, in a small town called Kasha, Czechoslovakia. Then we moved to another town of Munkac until the Germans came in and they took us to Auschwitz. And after Auschwitz, which I spent about 7, 8 months. And then I came to the United States, and with my uncle's help, he helped us get into the States. And we moved to New York. We stayed with my uncle for a couple of months. Then I took an apartment. My mother and my sister survived. So the three of us got an apartment in Forest Hills, New York. And after that, I got married, and in 1953, and I went into the army. I was in the army in intelligence in Nuremberg for 2 months, and after that, we came back, and I opened a jewelry store with the help of my uncle. And then I got married, as I said. I have 3 children and 2 grandchildren, and we are living now in Old Westbury, New York.
Okay.
And
oh, hi, Erwin. So
hi.
I'm going to stop you right there, and I'm going to have our first student come on up.
Okay.
Okay. So because some of the questions I think they're going to ask you, you're probably going to cover in this biography. So maybe it's easier if we ask the questions. Andy, come on up. So our first student is Andy, and he has a question for you. Go ahead, Andy. You can speak right into the.
Do you remember when you found out the Allies were invading? Where were you and what were your reactions?
Well, I was in Auschwitz. And I was in the hospital. I had an accident in my foot from my work. I worked in the cutting trees, and so it was January and the 27th, and we heard the gunshot wounds, but not the Allies. We heard the Russians, because the Russians were the ones who liberated us, actually, January 27th. And the way I found out that we were liberated, a Russian truck pulled up to the hospital, practically. I came out of the room. I was walking towards the truck, and I said, the Germans came back to kill us. And he gets out of the truck. He has a white sheet on because there was a lot of snow and they didn't want their army uniforms to be seen. And he started talking to me in Russian, and I answered him in Czech, and he said, you are liberated, you are free now. And that's how I found out that we were liberated.
Okay, thank you, Erwin. We have a few questions from students now about what life was like in Auschwitz. So I'm going to have Danny come on up, and also Sarah. They're both going to ask you questions related to being at Auschwitz. So Danny, go ahead, honey.
Hello. I was going to say, how did the camps decide, once people arrived there, who would be working and who would be put to death?
Well, it was the decision of a German officer whose name was Mengele, and he was called the Angel of Death. He said, and when the train loads arrived to Auschwitz, they emptied the trains, and he decided the old people and the children were going straight to the crematoriums, which they got killed the same day. The men and women were separated. So I stayed with my father. My mother went with my sister, and my grandmother went with my brother. And so my grandmother and brother died immediately. and we were scheduled to go to work because they only took people that were able to work. And that was this one man decided life or death.
And
Thank
so,
you for sharing.
thanks, Tim. So Sarah's question is, I think you might have actually answered it already when you told us about how your job was cutting trees. Is that right? Is that the work you did?
No, that
I
was
was wrong.
no.
Sorry.
No, my job was we were scheduled to go to a farm, and actually my father and myself, we went to a farm near Auschwitz, which was called Budi, which was maybe 3 miles from Auschwitz, and where we did farming, and then I was put in a punishing commando, cutting trees, and that's where I got hurt. That's where I got separated from my father. And that's when I was sent to the hospital, and I never saw him again. Eventually he went on a death march, and he died in Buchenwald, concentration camp.
Wow. I'm going to invite, Sarah's question, I think, was already answered. I'm going to invite Oliver to come on up. Oliver has a question about life at the camp too. Okay, so Oliver, go ahead and introduce yourself to him.
Hi, I'm Oliver.
Hi, Oliver.
How weak did you feel at the camp? Do you have a vivid memory? Did you have a vivid memory of how it felt?
Yes, well, when we were assigned to the farm, with my father, we were working on the farm, and the food was very, very minimal. We got up 5 o'clock in the morning. We had to stand in line in what they called appel. They counted all the people if nobody escaped, and they gave us coffee and bread, and then lunch again, coffee and maybe sometimes a soup. And so I was always very hungry. So I ate on the farm. I ate the green grass, which I got a diarrhea, and I had diarrhea for 30 days. But the work was very hard, and they were very cruel, and the guards were not very nice. They were beating us and tried to make us work always harder and harder.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for that answer, Erwin. That's we have another question from Aiden. So Aiden's going to introduce himself.
Hi. How did you hold on to the hope of freedom while being worked and starved to death?
Well, hope for freedom. If we don't have hope, if we didn't have hope and hope that we'll free one day, then they had the electrical wire, and people would just commit suicide there and die. You always have hope. Hope is a very important word for all of you children to remember, because if you don't have hope, then there's no life, because everything is hope. You hope you get a good score in your tests. You hope you get up in the morning. You hope your food will be good. Life is full of hope. So we were always hoping, and that's what kept us going, and that's what made us believe that one day we'll meet our family again, and we hope that we are going to live through it and see it. And the word hope is a very, very important, and just remember that you always have to hope, and always hope for the best.
Okay, Erwin, we have a follow-up question from Angelica, who it's a similar question in a way, and I think you gave us a little bit of the answer already with hope, but she's going to ask you the question and see if you can add to it.
What was it that kept you going while you were away from your family?
Well, that was it was. It was hope, faith, and hope that we are going to see our family, and we worked, because if we wouldn't have had hope, we wouldn't have lived. So with the hope, we were able to, and our hope came true because my mother and sister survived. So our hope was justified and right, and we were glad that we hoped and we didn't take the other direction. And that was kept us going, hope and faith.
Okay, Anthony has a question for you next, Erwin.
Okay.
Anthony, come on over.
Hi, Anthony.
And then your cousin, Mr. Sharman's gonna get on and ask you a question after that.
Okay.
Okay,
How many people slept in the same room at one time and what were the living conditions like?
That's a good question. When we arrived to Auschwitz, we stayed on a board, about between 8 and 10 people for about 3 or 4 days until we were assigned to the farm. Once we were assigned to the farm, we were assigned. We had 3 barracks, and there were 300, approximately 300 inmates in the 3 barracks. So each barrack had approximately 80 to 100 people. And we had a stove and we had a bed. We had an individual bed with a cover. So that condition wasn't that bad. Sleeping condition wasn't bad. And I was never able to, I slept together with my father in 2 separate beds in the same barrack. And in that, so that's how we were. And then I ended up in the hospital, as I said. And then they evacuated the farm, the people from the farm, and most of the people died on the way, on the death marches. I was fortunate enough to live and liberated in January 27th, 77 years ago.
wow. Mr. Sharman, do you want to jump in with your question? Here he comes.
Hi, Erwin.
Hi, Alan.
How are you?
Okay, how are you doing?
Good. I want you to know all the teachers and all our 7th grade students are very honored to have you. We're very thankful for your time. And my question is the following. The Allied Army Air Force had the capability to bomb Auschwitz and demolish the gas chambers and crematorium used for killing the Jews. Knowing that prisoners at the camp would be killed by bombing attempts, would you have wanted them to bomb and destroy the killing apparatus?
Yes, definitely.
Did you ever discuss this with other prisoners or other?
Well,
people
we spoke
afterwards?
about it. We spoke about it, and we said that we were surprised that, I mean, it would have been much easier to bomb the trails, the railroad tracks, the trains that were bringing us to the gas chambers, and the tracks should have been bombed. But they couldn't. They didn't do it. I still don't understand why. And if they had precision bombing, they could have bombed the crematoriums and the gas chambers, and that wasn't easily rebuilt because we were, it was just a question of a few months. We got there in May, and we were liberated by January, and they could have bombed, and we spoke about it, but it never happened.
Thank you.
So our next question comes from Owen, and you mentioned faith a few minutes ago with one of your other responses, and so Owen's question is about faith. Go ahead, Owen.
After the Holocaust, did you experience strength in your faith or make it weaker?
It didn't make it weaker. If anything, it made it stronger. And I mean, you have to have faith. If you don't have faith, what do you have? So I believe in faith and hope, and so I would say that it got stronger.
Thank you, Erwin. Our next question comes from McKenna.
Once you were free, the power of forgiveness lay in your hands. If you had the opportunity, would you forgive a Nazi soldier, or are you filled with too much hate to forgive those who inflicted pain on you?
I am not full of hate, because if I would hate, then it would ruin me and it would sicken me. But I would never forgive any of the Nazis that participated in the extermination of the Jews. And none of the soldiers, none of the Nazis that lived during that period of time, today they wouldn't be living anymore. And most of them, I mean, they would be too old. But I would never forgive any of the Nazis that participated, not their heirs and not the Germans. There's nothing to forgive. They haven't done anything. But the people that actually participated in this Holocaust, I would never forgive. I could never forgive them.
Okay, Erwin, thank you. The next question is going to come from Ailish. Excuse me just for a second. I have to X something out here. Okay.
Once you made it to America, how hard was it for you to restart your life there?
Well, once we came actually, I came with my mother and sister, and we stayed with my uncle for about 3 months. And he introduced me to a jewelry designer, and that's how I went into the jewelry business. And then we got an apartment and we moved away after 3 months living with my uncles and aunts and my cousins. And we moved to Forest Hills, New York. And I worked as a designer and jewelry designer, and it's a long story. And I have been doing it ever since. Even today, I still have people calling me for designs, as odd as it may seem.
That's incredible. You must be very talented.
I hope so.
So we have one more question for you from Praise, one of our students. So she's going to come on up. And then we're going to have to wrap up because the students have another class. But so Praise is going to introduce herself and she's going to ask her last question.
Okay.
Okay. So after you got liberated from the camps, did you still experience prejudice after?
After camp, I haven't personally. No, I haven't personally, but I think there's plenty of prejudice around and hatred and but I haven't personally, I haven't noticed anything that affected my life as far as prejudice was concerned.
Well, you have an amazing story, Erwin, and I'm so glad you were able to share it.
I'm sorry that I couldn't elaborate on things because I had to cut it short, but there are many things that.
Well, how about this? If we had some follow-up questions, if I sent them to you, maybe you could respond to students if they come up with any questions today.
I
Or
would be happy to do it. And you asked me about recording, it's fine with me.
yes, I did record it too. So there's a few students who aren't with us today and they'd like to see this. So I'm going to share it with them as well.
Okay, so maybe I can get one also.
Oh, absolutely. Yes, for sure.
No, I'll be happy to answer any questions or any respond. They can call me, they can talk to me at length.
Well,
whatever.
I told them that you know how to text message too, and they were impressed with that. So I won't give them your phone number though.
Okay.
So thank you so much. Let me see, does anyone in my room want to say anything or? No, we're just, they've been very quiet listening to you, taking it all in.
Right, well, it's very limited time and it's not very much that you can really A lifetime cannot be said in a half an hour.
No, but you did a really nice job and we really appreciate it. So thank you so much.
Thank you,
Erwin.
Julie. Thank you, Julie.
Okay.
Alan, thank you.
Thank you, Erwin. We really appreciate it. Thank you so much. Talk to you soon.
Thank
Okay.
you. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
And remember, always hope.
Always hope. I think that's a great message. And I also love your message about not hating, not letting hate ruin a person. That was
Exactly.
wonderful. So, thank you. Take care, Erwin.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.